1987. John Pittman, a high-flying medical student in Chicago, catches the eye of Tracy Richter, a bright and beautiful radiographer.
She was attractive and smart and vivacious, and she had an ability to read people that I hadn't really ever encountered before. She also sort of had a way of knowing what you were, wanted to hear or were very interested in. And, at times she almost seemed too perfect.
And she always got good grades in school. And at that time, because her SAT test, she got one of the highest scores, I'm pretty sure, in the whole United States.
She has a 145, 150 IQ, which is very, very high IQ, very bright, very perceptive.
In 1989, the happy newlyweds move west to the mountain city of Denver, Colorado, where John throws himself into a demanding medical career.
I was in a high-powered, high-energy, high-demand residency, 120-hour work week. The residency went very well. Things were very promising.
When he meets Tracy's family, the Richters, they give John a warm Midwestern welcome.
Very down to earth, but I like that. So we all got along just great.
We treated him like a son, no different than if he was our son. And up to that point, I mean, he was okay. And my point is, I'm not married to him. You don't all like the same people.
But after 2 years, the honeymoon is over. Tracy's career falters, and she becomes unsettled and restless.
She would get a job, then all of a sudden, I'd get some sort of story, and then she'd be doing a different job, and then there'd be a different job.
She's just as unhappy staying at home.
As she didn't really have a job. She was just around the house, and not much was getting done. She also claimed we were both big animal lovers, or so she claimed she was, and I am a big animal lover. So we started acquiring pets, and which is great. But I found myself being the one taking care of them.
Psychotherapist Stacy Kaiser and forensic psychologist Brian Russell see signs of trouble emerging.
I think intellectually you can understand I'm married to a man who works a lot of hours because he's building a career and a life for us. And I think emotionally you can still feel neglected. I see this happen with women all the time. Just because I understand that you need to work doesn't mean that I don't want your love and adoration.
If one person feels smart and intelligent and capable, and yet it's the other person who seems to be the one who's busy, the one who has the life outside the home, the one who's making the money, getting all the recognition and prestige, you can have a resentment born of that.
John's parents never really warmed to his young wife, and their opinion of her is about to plummet.
There was a major credit card fraud incident, and that was the first real sign of things to come. My parents had 2 high limit credit cards that someone got their hands on.
After thousands of dollars are spent on household items, John's parents investigate the trail of fraud. Their investigation leads to a very surprising source, Tracy.
When you take the credit card, how it was used, where it was used, who the lists of suspects were, which is a very short list, it really started to look like it was her. She was adamant in her denials. I mean adamant. She basically said there is in no way was she involved with this in any way, shape, or form, and anyone who would accuse her of such, was out to get her.
No charges are filed, and the couple try to put it behind them. But the atmosphere within the family remains chilly, made worse, according to Anna, by the birth of their son.
I was out there when Bert was born, and I think the 6 weeks that I was out there, if you would put all the days together that John was home, maybe it would come out to a week. But even when he was home, he was always very distant, very much to himself. It was difficult for John to show affection, and he didn't seem to have attachments.
Whoever's at fault, the couple's arguments become longer, crueler, and more frequent.
She became difficult in a hurry. She had an explosive temper, which I had never seen before. There became a cycle where no matter what happened, all of a sudden it was my fault, and I was responsible. And, you know, you certainly shoulder your share of the blame and maybe a little bit extra, and that's fine. But I began to really notice that she never really took responsibility for anything. It looked like she just was looking for something to complain about on a daily basis, and to create a picture of enemies, you know, surrounding her, including me, and certainly my family. She would go to work somewhere, and then there would be some horrible incident. I remember she said that some boss's son sexually harassed her and, you know, was accusing her of all sorts of things. So there would always be some sort of blow up, some big incident.
As the tension escalates, Tracy's temper takes a dramatic and violent turn.
It was, again, something really minor. I think my shoes were out of place or something really tiny. And she just absolutely exploded. And it was not like anything I'd ever seen. It was almost like an animal. And she turned to me and said, you know, you're never gonna leave this house alive. She comes out of the bedroom waving a gun. Now, I knew we had a gun, but I didn't know that's what she was getting. But once I saw it, I basically dove out the door as soon as I saw that. I heard the gun go off. And she appeared at the front door and was super apologetic, and I'm so sorry, and, you know, all of a sudden, that entire mood and rage was gone, just gone.
John calls the police, but Tracy insists she had no intention of shooting him.
As Tracy was charming, very passive, and very apologetic, she then explained to me that it was a suicide attempt, that she wanted to kill herself. Which, you know, I mean, she shot in the air, and I didn't see what happened. I did not see her physically shoot the gun. I mean, it was possible.
She was distraught. She brought the gun down, didn't realize it was loaded, and it went off. I find the claims that John would say she tried to harm him funny, because at the time, never once did he ever accuse her of trying to harm him. Never once.
Stacy Kaiser and Dr. Brian Russell see a marriage in serious trouble.
The discharge of the gun maybe was accidental at that point, but the propensity for her to create a risk for violence, at the very least, should have been a giant red flag waving all over the place in front of him.
They aren't really talking about their problems. They're just busy living their lives. And I think it really made her escalate to a point of almost going crazy.
John Pittman and Tracy Richter had so much potential. But the rosy glow of newlywed love has dimmed, leaving violence, fear, and paranoia. By 1992, John has hired an investigator to unravel what he believes is a plot against his life.
What the investigator explained to me was that, number one, what she's going to try to do is get you alone where she knows you're alone and you're in private. And that's when it's going to happen, because she's not going to kill you. She's going to have someone else do it.
I think that John did the right thing by hiring a private investigator. That said, if you reach a point in a relationship where you think you need to hire an investigator, then I think you have to really look at whether or not you should be in that relationship.
As John and Tracy prepare to move back east to Chicago, the investigator continues his surveillance.
She called me and said, hey, let's meet at our apartment, and then we'll go get some dinner. I said, okay, and as soon as I got off the phone, Glenn, the investigator, called, and he said, something's going on. And I said, well, why do you say that? And he said, did she just call you? Because you could see her on the cell phone. He said, you know, what did she say? And I explained, and he said, well, you got a real problem. And I said, why is that? He said, well, your apartment is due east, and she is headed straight west as fast as she can go. And he said, whatever you do, do not go to your apartment, and you need to go to a public place right now. Sure enough, she called a few minutes later and said, oh, I'm at the apartment. Where are you? She wasn't at the apartment at all. She was up in the mountains at that point.
John never discovers whether there really was a hitman lying in wait. But his fears are heightened when the investigator reports that Tracy is associating with some very shady characters.
He said they're living under assumed names. He said the vehicles they drove were registered to other people. She spent 7 different nights with 4 different males, something like that. So this obviously wasn't an affair. There was something else going on here completely. These are people you don't want to be fooling around with. So with that, I, was very thankful that I had gotten out of there alive. I didn't need any more convincing at that point. That was pretty obvious to me that she really had a problem.
4 years into their marriage, in fear for his life, John moves out of the family home, leaving his wife and 2-year-old son. Initially, Tracy refuses to accept that the marriage is over.
She kept calling me, wanting to reconcile and all this, and I just didn't want anything to do with it. I just didn't even want to think about it at that point.
But 4 years later, with the divorce finalized, Tracy does move on in a dramatic way. By 1996, she is swept up in a whirlwind internet romance with Australian entrepreneur Michael Roberts.
Wasn't particularly interested at the beginning, but there was a little bit of backwards and forwards, mainly with email. I mean, she was beautiful, she was articulate, she was very engaging, socially talented, and everybody loved her. So it, signed me up. I was hooked.
Tracy agrees to fly to Australia and meet Michael in person. Tracy's mother, Anna, is alarmed at the prospect.
Here you're going to a different country, you don't know this person. Are you sure this is what you want to do? But she wanted to go out there. He talked her into coming out there. And Michael can be very persuasive.
Tracy came to Australia and I proposed, and at the end of the visit and 18 days after meeting this person, for the first time, we got married.
And Michael isn't exempt from Tracy's colorful perception of reality. She complains that he's both neglectful and overly controlling.
He was very possessive. When she would come over, because she'd say, oh, he's playing video games downstairs and he's been down there for 3 hours. So she says, I got lonely, so I came over. She would be in the house 5 minutes and he'd be calling, when are you coming home? When are you coming home? Wherever she was, she couldn't go anywhere.
My relationship with Tracy was acrimonious. It was dysfunctional. It was debilitating. I was always looking for something that would change Tracy or change me, because of course I blamed myself for a lot as well. I didn't understand why, but it was all my fault, and the Richter family now make that very clear that it's all my fault now too. So.
One day, Tracy discovers that a bad business deal has cost them thousands of dollars.
And Tracy comes storming in the back door. She was just stomping and rampaging and cursing and yelling at Michael. And Michael looked at me and he says, I'm gonna have to excuse you. I'm gonna ask you to go home now. And I said, no problem, not my business. So I just got up and gathered my things and I left. Well, the next day, Michael had called and told me that he had spent the night in jail. And I'm like, what?
She started literally kicking her boots through both the drywall on both sides. It would come right through. And she was doing this right over a 220 volt heater. So I put my arms around her to pull her back because I actually thought she was going to electrocute herself. I didn't throw her to the floor. I didn't drop her to the floor. I actually laid her down. And then I stepped back because she was hurting me.
An hour later, local police receive a call from Tracy and Michael's home.
And then red and blue lights outside. And that was it. Police officers, guns drawn. I came to the front door. I said, what's up, guys? I said, put the child down, put the child down. I was taken away.
Very much like what happened with John, where there was this explosion of anger. She starts going crazy. She's kicking the wall. She seems to be seeing red. He's having a hard time getting her to focus. This is definitely a pattern.
Custody disputes, allegations of abuse, and a sexual assault case should provide enough drama for any married couple. But what happens next turns this drama into a tragedy.
I was supposed to contact Tracy about some work that she had for Dustin. She goes, oh, we've just got a whole bunch of copies for him to make. She said, just send him down in the next day or two. And I'm like, okay.
Later that day, Mona receives a horrifying telephone call.
My nephew called me on my cell phone, and he had told me something really bad had happened at my friend's house down the street. And the house is all taped off, and there was a fatality, but he goes, I don't know who. And I just personally thought Michael had shot Tracy or Tracy had shot Michael. And my husband goes, I think Dustin's car is at the Roberts. I'm just like, I want to see my son. I want to see my son. And they're like, you can't. You need to go home.
Tracy's mother, Anna, hears the news from her 11-year-old grandson.
At first he was calm, and he goes, Grandma? And I said, yeah. He said there was a shooting in the house. Someone tried to kill Mommy.
2 men had broken in, tried to strangle Tracy. She'd managed to get a gun and kill one, and the other got away.
Family and investigators try to piece together this horrific chain of events.
She heard someone come in downstairs, and she thought it was Michael coming home early.
Saw 2 men coming up the stairs, didn't recognize them.
She says, I just turned with the baby, and I start running towards the bedroom.
Ran to the boys' room, handed my daughter to one of the boys, was pulled back by a ponytail, closed the door while being pulled back, was strangled, fell unconscious.
Tracy says the attackers tried to strangle her with pantyhose.
From what I understand, when Tracy woke up, she pushed herself back, and they hit the wall, and she got away.
She got up, ran to the room, got underneath the bed, was able to get a gun out.
And then she just laid there between the bed and the wall and just started firing in the direction. And then she heard running down the stairs.
When the police arrive, they find Mona's son, Dustin, dead in a pool of blood. The second intruder, whose identity is unknown, has apparently escaped. In the days following, Mona Weedy tries to understand this devastating tragedy.
None of it made sense. And then as the police are starting to ask us questions, I would ask questions. Well, was the house broke into? No. I'm like, my son parked right in front of their house under their security light. Did he have any weapons? No. Did he have a mask? No. Did he have gloves on? No. And there was no forceful entry. But he went there to rob him. I'm like, that don't make any sense.
Dustin Weedy has been shot dead by Tracy Richter in an apparent act of self-defense. Dustin's handwritten notebook suggests that Tracy's first husband, Dr. John Pittman, is involved. But lead investigator Trent Villada has some doubts.
I still have yet to find anyone to believe that a nationally recognized plastic surgeon would have decided to hire Dustin Weedy as an assassin for Tracy. That it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that they would know Dustin. It doesn't make any sense that if they wanted Tracy to die, that they would ask Dustin to do it.
I remember hearing something from someone that I was being implicated in, and I thought, well, how ridiculous is that? But, what else is new?
Dustin's mother, Mona Weedy, refuses to believe he wrote the journal of his own free will.
They asked me if my son journaled, and I'm like, no. I said, not Dustin, he hates to write. We could barely get him to do his schoolwork, let alone for Dustin to journal.
Investigators begin to wonder if Tracy forced Dustin to write in the notebook in an attempt to set up her ex-husband.
She was going through another custody dispute with John Pittman, and John Pittman was the guy she hated most in the world. And there's no court in the world that's going to give custody to a guy that's accused of a murder for hire.
The notebook is kept secret from the public, the press, and all the potential suspects. Police believe that anyone who has knowledge of the journal could be complicit in the death of Dustin Weedy.
The investigators, they were waiting to see who was going to come forward and start talking about the notebook.
In the years following, the Dustin Weedy case goes cold. Mona Weedy attempts to bring a wrongful death lawsuit against Tracy, but she can't afford the legal fees.
We were getting nowhere. We felt nothing was happening, no questions were being answered, and that was our personal attempt to try to get questions answered.
Special Agent Trent Villida never believes Tracy's claim of self-defense. In 2010, 9 years after the fatal shooting of Dustin Weedy, he persuades the new county attorney, Ben Smith, to reopen the investigation.
There was just a lot of things that jumped out at me even in the first hour that I really spent some time on it that just did not add up. My first inclination was, what are you not telling me about this? Where's the dog in this thing? There has got to be, something that's just impossible, an impossible obstacle or hurdle. So many questions that I'd go to sleep thinking about it. I'd wake up thinking about it.
They narrow down the list of potential conspirators. Police find no evidence that the dentist, Dr. Laspiza, is involved. The first husband, John Pittman, has an alibi. That leaves the second husband, Michael, and Trent's prime suspect, Tracy herself. With Ben on his side, Trent decides to take a chance. He engages Tracy in an email conversation.
Tracy was only going to communicate me if she thought I was on her side. I told her I was in charge of this multi-agency task force. We were going to discover the identity of the second attacker. Now, I didn't say I believe there was a second attacker, and I know in the back of her mind she knows there wasn't one. But as with any suspect who wants the police to believe them, I knew she would try to become cooperative.
As the emails go back and forth, Tracy starts to become more talkative, and she gets sloppy. Tracy brings up the notebook, the same notebook found in Dustin's car and kept a closely guarded secret by the police for 10 years. They know that anyone who mentions it may be complicit in Dustin's death.
She said, Michael Roberts had a premonition from God that Mona would find a notebook that would allow them to sue John Pittman.
Then, Tracy Richter makes a colossal slip-up.
I just basically told her I was going to go talk to Michael Roberts and John Pittman and asked her if she would describe them for me. The most amazing thing happened. The one paragraph she used to describe John Pittman was basically paragraph 5 from Dustin's pink notebook, almost an exact quote. For me, that was a huge turning point. That was her saying, in her own words, what was in the notebook. I think that Tracy knew the longer she spoke with me, the worse it was starting to look for us. I think she needed to end it somehow.
But Villida needs more. He needs proof that Tracy knew about the notebook at the time of Dustin's death. There's one witness that may be able to help, a close friend of Tracy's, Mary Higgins. If she knows about the notebook, she would have heard it directly from Tracy.
By all accounts, everything that I gathered from the report is that Mary was Tracy's closest friend. And it's not easy to get a best friend to tell on their friend knowing what the stakes are.
Trent had always told me that Mary Higgins, she knows something, and I had gotten to know her, met her a couple of times. I guarantee you, Trent, she knows nothing. And I go out there, she does not want to talk. She doesn't want to talk about it. She's past it. You'll never catch her. And then I said something, we think that we, found something that can link her to this. And she told me, you mean that stupid pink notebook? And I almost got sick when she said it. So Mary Higgins, huge. I mean, absolutely, tying her to that. Once we had Mary Higgins' testimony, that was the case.
Finally, 9.5 years after Dustin Weedy's death, Tracy Richter is charged with first-degree murder. At the trial, Mary testifies that Tracy told her about the notebook soon after the killing. The prosecution argues that Tracy convinced Dustin to write the diary and then shot him dead in an attempt to set up her ex-husband.
There's speculation that maybe she lured him up there, promising him sex for writing the notebook, or Dustin loved computers, so maybe she promised him a job with the company, or it could be as simple as she described John Pittman as a child molester, and Dustin would help out the family by keeping Bert away from Dr. Pittman.
People, say, oh, she was going to lose child support. She didn't care about child support. She cared about winning. She cared about beating Dr. Pittman. That's it. It's all it ever was.
On November 7th, 2011, the jury finds Tracy Richter guilty of first-degree murder. She is sentenced to life in prison. Tracy still maintains her innocence, as does her family.
They say that I just can't accept. And I said, I can accept it if it's true, but I know it's not true. And I'm going to fight, and I don't care. I'm never going to give up to prove that she's innocent.
Look at the lives that have been wrapped up around her and the people who've gotten close to her and what's happened to them. Between me and Michael and the dentist and all these people whose lives have almost gotten destroyed by her. Is that coincidence? I mean, that's a heck of a coincidence.
She got first-degree murder, life in prison, without parole. It's true, it's real, it happened. That part is done, it's over with.
I hope Mona knows how deeply sorry I am. Not only did I bring her son into the orbit of a monster, I defended that monster and I insulted her son after he was dead. And for that, I'm very, very sorry.